Now, you're probably sitting there thinking, well, okay, this is interesting. We've talked about long-form production, short-form production, but I'm not a producer. My organization doesn't produce videos. Well, the thing about the Odyssey Network family is that it embraces not just the producers, but clearly the consumers. We watch video, we use video. Part of our role as a faith organization is perhaps to tell people, let people know about what we do, or even have something to help us in what we do, reflecting on our faith, inspiring us to go out and do something. And often there's a bit of a gap between our theology, our belief, what we do in our spiritual life, and then the way the world is out there. In many ways, Odyssey has a sort of division in one way of production. On Call on Faith, we have what some people call religion as lifestyle. It's faith and inspiration. That's another genre they call it. And it's reflecting on our spirituality. And then we have On Today, which is a daily video that goes out, which is about faith in action, changing the world. What is faith for? One of the things, if it's still bad out there and cold and dark out there, but it's nice and cozy in here, is that right? Shouldn't we be going out there and changing and doing something? And that's what we do with our video. So for all the consumers, we created something with Huffington Post this year called On Scripture Bible. There's a link, literally, between Scripture and the news, what's happening out there. The lectionary tells us in advance what readings there will be in our churches and our places of worship this coming weekend. And with a bit of foresight, you can actually link that up with some news, so you see the way the world is through the lens of Scripture, and vice versa. You reread Scripture with new eyes through the issues that have been whizzing around your head in the week from the lead story on TV, the radio, or the headlines in the papers. So I really would like to look at this. It's been one of our most successful, if not the most successful product Odyssey has done in the last 2 years, with around 1 million unique hits a month coming in from Huffington Post for this piece where it is shown, along with the Day One website and the Odyssey website. So I'd like to welcome up now the people behind that. Paul Raushenbush, you are the editor of religion at Huffington Post, and you came up with this idea. Please come to the stage. And also one of those people who actually takes the video and the text and interprets it, the Reverend Eric Barreto from Luther Seminary. Eric, welcome. Paul, welcome. Eric, welcome to Odyssey Networks. Now, we're going to show one of those short-form videos that accompanies the text that goes out on Huffington Post. I think it's every Wednesday. Every Wednesday it goes up. Give you at least 3 or 4 days to prepare, all those preachers out there. Or the congregation. It's not just the preachers, is it? It's congregation as well, Paul, to look at.
It's for anyone. I mean, I think a lot of people are reading it and watching it and learning without necessarily saying, oh, well, I have to use this in my sermon. They're just like kind of consuming it as really a provocative, informative, engaging way of living through the Scripture, which actually is a surprising hot spot for Huffington Post religion. I mean, one of the most interesting things is how interested people are in Scripture, Scripture interpretation, and this is a great way to get into Scripture through modern-day examples. It's very sermonic in its approach, and intentionally so, and people like Eric are doing such a great job.
If I can say, actually, when I'm writing these pieces, and the other authors have said the same thing, we're not imagining the practitioner who's going to go preach these texts primarily. We're imagining people in their everyday lives who maybe don't think every day about faith in the ways that practitioners do. How do they think about Scripture? How do they think about faith? And how do they think about the evening newscasts?
Because the tragedy, and maybe this was in your mind, Paul, when you came up with this, is exactly that. There is a disconnect. There is Scripture, and somehow it's written in a strange language in a strange book, and it's somehow separate and different from the rest of our lives. And maybe we'll go and listen to it in church on a Sunday. But there needs to be a bridge between that and the rest of the things going around in our heads. So when you're there at Huffington Post and you're thinking, what can we do? What can we do at Huffington Post to help the faith communities of America? How does this fit that need?
Well, I want to start by saying that Huffington Post is very glad for this partnership with Odyssey Networks. It's not just in this way. We've run mostly short form videos that have just been so helpful in us putting forth the news, and putting forth the news in a similar way that I think Odyssey is trying to do so, which is in a way that's productive, positive, informative, intelligent, engaging. That's really the mission of HuffPost Religion as well, is to really try to get, with the eye towards an interfaith sensibility. So this is one area that we're very grateful, but there's been other areas too, so I want to start with that. But our mission really is to service religious people, religious leaders, religious communities, and help people to really be able to access, in any way they need to, the kind of religious quest they're on, whether they're deeply rooted in community, they're looking for religious news, they're looking for opinions from outstanding religious leaders. And we're looking to do that in an environment that actually, in some ways, does provide a container, which is you're not going to see a cage match on HuffPost Religion. You're not going to see, we're not going to have the Jews going after the Muslims, going after the Hindus, going after the Sikhs. We're really going to say, it's great to critique your own religion. There's plenty to critique in all of our religions. So we wanted to create a very positive, informative environment. I should say that on Scripture, which is this collaboration, I'd love to take as much credit as anybody wants to give me, but really it was a conversation between someone who's on staff on Scripture, Mary Brown, Pastor Mary Brown, who I was talking to because I was really looking for resources for these kind of things. And then this collaboration happened very organically. So again, we're very grateful.
I'm glad you've mentioned Mary. I was going to mention her at the end, but I think Mary, where's Mary? Mary should stand up waving at the back.
Standing in the back.
Whoa, woo! I'd say camera 2 should get a close-up of Mary, but camera 2 doesn't move and she's not lit. But she is here. Okay, let's take it through the process. Eric, you're the scholar. You get the call. You've got Christmas week. You go to the lectionary. Oh, my goodness, I've got Luke 2, 1 to 20. What's in your mind, and what sort of video are you looking for?
All sorts of things are on my mind. I think one, Luke is one of my favorite texts, so it's a good place to dig in. But Christmas is something that, whether you're in their church or out of it, you know something about Christmas. So what is there that's new? What is there that's in the cultural air that we might be able to tap into? And I found in the end that it was this kind of lingering image of a homeless little baby born in the middle of this great empire who was going to change the world. It was that unusual place where he might be born, and not in the halls of Caesar, but in this really humble place. And we were able to connect this really well with this video about the tent city. I think I said in my piece that if Jesus were to be born today, he wouldn't be born in the safety of a clean hospital, but in a place like this.
Well, let's watch it. It's about 5 minutes. Well worth the watch. Tent City.
I started Tent City 5 years ago and moved down here myself 2 years ago. And this is just to meet the basic needs of people that don't have an option for housing in Ocean County. There's a lot of tent cities around the nation right now, and they're popping up all the time because of the economy, the need for affordable housing, true affordable housing. But this tent city right here in Lakewood, New Jersey has about 70 individuals. It's probably the most diverse tent city you'll find in the nation.
I was born in New York. I'm 46, and I'm here because I think I'm a victim of the recession. I was a mason for 2 decades, and since the recession hit, I lost my insurance, the car, then the apartment, and then here I am.
This is Town Center. Here we've got our main cooking facilities, which is a big social event for people to eat together. Here we have our kitchen. We have a regular 4-burner stove that's fueled by propane, and people can come in here and cook. The Apostle Paul said that we are to work so that we can supply for our basic needs, but also so that we can give to others. So what we do here is anything that's over and above what we need in Tent City, we take it out to the general for. So the homeless are giving back to the community.
been here for, I guess, about 18 months. Lost my job a little over 2 years ago, and we tried living with our family, but it didn't work out. I really didn't know what to do, because if I'd waited for social services to find us something in New York, I'd still be waiting now.
I came over, I met Mr. Steve. It's going on 7 months. At my peak, I was making about $700–900 a week. I was laid off because the work was pretty much not there, and unemployment's just a fraction of what you used to make, and I couldn't make ends meet. I couldn't pay the bills all the way.
I'll be 61 in a few days. I'm too young for Social Security, so what do I do, you know? And as part of the social services here in New Jersey, you have to look for work. You have to put in 30 hours a week looking for work. And I've emailed and called and done all the stuff you're supposed to do. Not one single reply.
I just recently found a job, but I'm getting a fraction of the pay. I'm getting $8 an hour. So that still doesn't allow me to find affordable housing.
The cost of housing is outrageous. It's $21 an hour for a single individual in this area to afford a one-bedroom apartment, a used automobile, in the basic necessities of life. Social services won't help somebody if they make over $7 an hour. You're going to fall between the cracks, and you're going to end up in Tent City.
We manage. It's real tough. We get, between the two of us, we get a little over $100 a week for food, everything. Food, batteries, water. We work pretty hard all day. You know, no running water, no heat. If I want to wash dishes, I make the wood-burning stove heat up water, and that's how I wash dishes. And the winter, of course, is the hardest. Not so much because of the cold, but because it freezes everything.
This is my shower here. I built it out of the scraps around here. So the water gets in there, you heat it up, and you take your shower during the day, but I'm not able to do that in the winter. This is where I sleep. This is my bed. This is my bathroom right here. Everything goes in the woods in a hole. And this is my cooking area, my kitchen.
Lately, the last couple of years, we've seen a great increase in the homeless population. And it's a new population, people that are just not able to keep up with the cost of living, the cost of housing. They're falling through the cracks.
My conception of a homeless person used to be some wino drug addict, didn't want nothing. But, you know, being homeless can happen to anyone at any time, because it happened to me. I'm a prime example, and I worked all my life, never been homeless.
I just feel so badly for the people hanging on by their fingernails, because that's what we were doing, hanging on by our fingernails, scared to death of the next day and what was going to happen. And if I realized that this would be the alternative, I'd have been so relieved. And of course, it doesn't have to be quite as rugged as this one, but I think they should start thinking in that, you know, small communities where people can live and regroup.
Eric, I want to take you back to that week, the week of Christmas. The children are in Christmas overdrive. You haven't done the Christmas shopping. You've got Luke 2:1-20 in one hand. You've got a deadline from Paul in the other, and that video arrives in your inbox.
Yeah. And I have a 3-year-old daughter who finally gets Christmas for the first time, so we got this flurry of activity and excitement around the holiday.
So when you see that video, what do you connect with? Because you've connected the Christmas story perhaps already in the concept of homelessness or poverty today. What's unique about a video in that equation?
I think I could have described the tent city, or I could have described a situation in which Jesus would have been born today. But there are things that visually happen in a video that can't happen in text. So for example, you can see that the humble kitchen where these people cook. You can see this open-air congregation where they gather to worship. You can see their homes and the ways that you can see the care with which they've shaped their homes and decorated their homes. It's a place that I think most of us would find really, most of us find really distressing to be, but this is just their everyday life. So to kind of be inspired and see the ways in which they are living full lives or trying to live full lives in these very difficult situations, Contrast that then with what we hear about Christmas on cable TV, that there's a war on Christmas. If there is a war on Christmas, it's one that we're waging ourselves against one another when we allow people to be in situations like this. So that's what kind of wrapped it all up together for me in the end, despite all those Christmas pressures.
So for you, did you see that text with new eyes after watching that, and look at that video with new eyes after reading that text? Is that synergy?
Well, as a scholar of Scripture, I think that's what's powerful about these texts, is that they've been around for a long time, but they keep having new life because we, as a community of faith, keep having new experiences. So we turn to these texts that we may have read all our lives, and all of a sudden a new experience will open up these texts in ways we never could have expected. And that's what's really exciting about sharing this in such a significant platform like the Huffington Post.
And Paul, does it get you like that? Because when you sat there with Mary Brown and thought about this, you thought, yeah, they might go together. We know that video might or may not be a part of this. But has it actually proved itself to you in new ways that even you didn't think about?
Well, I think that it should be said that, like, video is going to help any story, really. I mean, it's going to lift it up, it's going to expand it, and it's also going to be in somewhat intention, because another thing I see in that video at the end is like, this works for us in a way. There's a small community. We are going to overcome this adversity. We're going to come. So in some ways, it's not, you know, however great your voice is, it's not just one voice that we're hearing. We're actually hearing the voice of the text, we're hearing your voice, and we're hearing their voice, which is actually, you know, kind of, we're going to make it in spite of this, and we're going to do it because we're coming together in small communities that are going to say no to this big commercial culture that has caused me so much anxiety. So what I loved about this and the ongoing process that it's becoming is that there's an inherent kind of creativity with all these mediums coming together. And part of what we talk a lot about at Huffington Post is user experience. So how is someone experiencing our product wherever it is, whether it's, you know, on religion or any other part of the Huffington Post? And if someone stays on the piece, if someone really dwells on it, and that's one of the things, that's one of our measures, is how long someone stays with any visit or stays on a piece, it means that they're really having a more rich experience. And that's what happens with this process, is that we're finding that people are, one, we're getting a lot of reaction, a lot of people, a lot of comments, a lot of, you know, and a lot of, frankly, a lot of people visiting each of these pieces, but also it's about user experience when they're there.
So it can't be just the preachers or the would-be preachers. It's the congregation as well, looking at this, and again, preparing for the service, or just looking at text outside a service.
Well, I tend to feature it a couple times a week. I feature it Wednesday morning when we first get it, but then I re-put it up on Sunday afternoon, so that generally people will see it in advance, but then they might also see it when they've come home from church. After they've heard it in church, then they might come home and say, oh, you know what, that resonates with what I heard, or oh no, that doesn't resonate with what I heard. I should also say that my guess is that I mean, it may be over 50%, but it's not 100% of just Christians looking at this. I mean, one of the things we're really trying to do at Huffington Post in all of our pieces is make them to honor the tradition they're from, but make them accessible so that if I want to learn about the Christian tradition, I can go on Huffington Post Religion and I can read Eric's piece and say, oh, that's what these Christians are talking about with Christmas. That's great. You know, I don't want to become a Christian, or maybe I do, but that is like a really great...
Were you expecting that? I hadn't thought that might happen. I'm really pleased it is.
No, this is I mean, you know, that happens. That's part of the hope is that having a multi-faith platform where people are on, as I say, on the same page, meaning they're right next to each other, they can learn from each other, and I can find out about the different religions of the world without, in a non-intimidating, and actually learning from the best people who are promoting
it's creating it's a safe space.
It's a safe space.
Yeah. And it's interesting in Burton's film, you know, people were saying one of the problems is that Christians don't understand about Muslim beliefs or theology, and Muslims don't understand about Christian belief and theology.
Right.
Which leads me to the next question for you, which is, where does this go next? On Scripture Bible, on Scripture Torah, Quran, Guru Granth Sahib?
We are already doing this, and we're looking forward to partnering with Odyssey on that. I mean, I just introduced HuffPost Jummah, which is Friday morning. We have some amazing Muslim leaders who are writing reflections. Part of what I really don't like is that all the news you hear about Islam is reactive. It's connected to a news event. So I'm really trying to create forums and opportunities to highlight what's beautiful about the Muslim tradition from Muslims, so that it's not all bad. And I just want to say one other thing that's come up a couple times about how we consume media, because that's all of our problem. I encourage everyone in this room and who's listening to really gauge, what do you click on? What do you go to? Because we all do it. And I say, our commercial media will not change until people change. We started a whole area on Huffington Post called Good News, and we try to have as many positive stories as possible. But I can tell you one story about Fred Phelps and God Hates Fags Church will go so much bigger because all of us click on it. Oh, it makes me so angry. Click, click, click. And that's and so it's just it's something to think about in a forum like this. Can we monitor our own consumption of media in a way that actually promotes positive media? Because that's the only way it will change.
It's a good point. I think I was on a platform the other day, and you said, hey, God's big on the web, comes second behind porn.
That's right.
I remembered that.
Somehow.
Eric, we've got a big year coming up with news stories. We've got the presidential election. In May, NATO and the G8 come to Chicago. You've got your editor here, and you've got Mary Brown, who helps decide which scholars get what. What news story do you want next year?
I think the presidential election is pretty much unavoidable. I think the kind of revelry and excitement that the election of Barack Obama initiated 4 years ago has waned as the economy has suffered so much, and so many people have suffered. So it is, I think, an election about who we are as a people. It's going to bring, I think, much of what's worst about our culture to the forefront, but I think there's also an opportunity for us to come together and bring some of that positivity that you've been talking about, Paul. So hopefully it's these texts of scripture that can help us open up new ways of imagining how we might talk to one another and how we live together. So I think the presidential election will probably be unavoidable, I think.
You want to make a bid for that one? Okay.
I'll see what I can do.
Paul and Eric, thank you very much indeed. It's a great collaboration.